The Emerald Bay Hotel stood proudly atop Nob Hill, overlooking the winding streets of San Francisco. In the early morning mist, the elegant Victorian-style red brick exterior began to catch the first timid rays of sunlight, which reflected softly against the brass-railed staircase. Above the solid wooden doors, the words "The Emerald Bay" gleamed in gold, a symbol of prestige and history that had endured for half a century. Elizabeth Green had arrived earlier than usual that morning. She took out her father's gold pocket watch, a cherished keepsake, and noted the time, 6 a.m. For 50 years since its opening, the hotel, while never ostentatious, had earned the unwavering trust of San Francisco's elite. Its refined atmosphere and heartfelt service had made it a sanctuary for those who valued dignity, warmth, and tradition over mere luxury. "Good morning, Miss Elizabeth." Thomas Wilson, the hotel manager, greeted her with his usual warm smile as she stepped into the softly lit lobby. Thomas had been an irreplaceable presence at the hotel since her father's time, a figure of steady calm and devotion to the establishment. "Good morning, Thomas. How are things this morning?" Elizabeth asked, her voice carrying the quiet authority that came from years of careful management. "Chef Parker is testing a new pastry recipe. It's almost time for the morning meeting," Thomas replied. Elizabeth crossed the hall beneath the glow of the crystal chandeliers, the light glinting against the polished marble floors. She headed toward the staff room, where Mary Clark, the head housekeeper, had already prepared fresh coffee. The morning meeting was a crucial ritual, marking the beginning of each day at the Emerald Bay, a time to align the staff, discuss the day's events, and reaffirm the familial bonds her father had always cherished. Her father had always said, "A hotel is like a big family." Elizabeth had kept this principle alive in her heart, even 10 years after his passing. "We received a lovely letter from Mrs. Brown yesterday," Mary reported with a warm smile. She particularly enjoyed the evening wine tasting. Before Elizabeth could respond, the sharp click of high heels echoed in the hallway. The staff room door was flung open with abrupt force. "My, everyone's gathered so early." Catherine Green, Elizabeth's sister-in-law, announced. She swept into the room, her flashy designer suit commanding immediate attention, her lips curved into a sardonic, mocking smile. "Good morning, Catherine. This is unusual," Elizabeth said, maintaining her composure. "Just came to check things out," Catherine replied, her heels tapping against the Persian carpet as she circled the room. "My, this carpet's quite worn, isn't it?" "Our guests appreciate its warmth," Elizabeth answered quietly. "Yes, it's lovely, like a countryside inn," Catherine mocked before gliding out of the room and back toward the lobby, leaving a trail of tension in her wake. That evening, Elizabeth sat at dinner with her husband, James. The wine on the table remained nearly untouched as he spoke, a hint of fatigue in his tone. "Maybe Catherine's right. We should consider modernizing," James suggested, glancing at the flickering flames of the fireplace. "This hotel has history," Elizabeth replied calmly. "Each part of it holds meaning." Yet she noticed his eyes avoided hers. The man who once looked at her with genuine respect now seemed distracted, distant, preoccupied. As the fireplace's flames flickered, Elizabeth remembered her father's words. "The value of this hotel isn't just in its newness." The hotel had a soul. The guest book, filled with countless signatures and messages spanning generations, bore witness to the lives touched within these walls. Over 200 guests had gathered in the grand ballroom of the Ritz-Carlton San Francisco for the wedding of Catherine's close friend. Champagne gold tablecloths were adorned with elegant white calla lilies, and the ceiling chandeliers cast a gentle, golden glow throughout the room. A live violin performance filled the air, its melodies graceful and haunting. Outside, the breeze from the San Francisco Bay wafted between the skyscrapers. Elizabeth's mind wandered back to her own hotel. At the Emerald Bay, weddings were intimate, conducted with the warmth of a family gathering. Every detail, while never extravagant, created moments where hearts truly connected. Only a week ago, they had hosted the wedding of a local dignitary's daughter. The joy she had felt when the bride's mother tearfully whispered, "I'm so glad we chose this hotel," still lingered in her heart. Elizabeth, accompanied by Mary, Thomas, and other staff, had been invited to the ceremony. Her pastel blue dress exuded understated elegance, contrasting with the flashier attire of other guests. A single pearl necklace, inherited from her mother, gleamed modestly at her neck. Her wedding ring, gifted by James 10 years ago, adorned her right hand. Back then, James had still met her gaze when he spoke. "Elizabeth, it's been a while," said Mrs. Brown, a regular guest and one of San Francisco society's pillars. Dressed in an elegant navy dress, she smiled warmly. "Last week's afternoon tea was wonderful," she continued. "Your traditional scones are the best in San Francisco, and having tea by that fireplace is so comfortable for us older folks." "Thank you. Parker has been faithfully maintaining my father's recipe," Elizabeth replied. As she prepared to return Mrs. Brown's smile, Catherine approached, her presence commanding attention. "Elizabeth, your hotel could never host such a lovely wedding, could it?" she asked. Her crimson dress bold and defiant, diamonds sparkled at her neck and wrists, and her entire aura seemed to overshadow the bride. Young women surrounding her laughed sycophantically. "Every hotel has its own charm," Elizabeth replied gently, her voice steady with the confidence of 10 years of leadership. "Oh, you think so?" Catherine said mockingly, tilting her wine glass. "Times change. Old things are destined to be discarded, especially when abandoned by those who should protect them." Those words sent a chill down Elizabeth's spine, though she hid her reaction carefully. Strength had always been her shield. Her father had taught her that the most important thing in this business was composure, no matter what. As the reception progressed, Elizabeth observed her staff. Mary's glances were anxious. Thomas's mild expression had vanished, and even Chef George Parker, unusually, had not touched his meal. These people had worked alongside her for years, forming a second family within the walls of the Emerald Bay. Across the table, James was deep in conversation with Catherine. There was something calculated, almost scheming, in both their expressions. James's left hand repeatedly adjusted his tie, a nervous habit. Elizabeth's fingers brushed against her father's pocket watch, the cold metal grounding her in calm resolve. When the cake-cutting ceremony concluded, the room erupted into celebration. Champagne corks popped, voices of congratulations filled the air, and yet Elizabeth sensed a shadow lurking beneath the festivity. Mary leaned closer, whispering, her hands trembling slightly. "I have a strange feeling about this." "Yes, I know," Elizabeth replied quietly. Her reflection shimmered in the glass of champagne, calm and composed. The pride and legacy of her father kept her upright. Soon, it was time for James's speech. Catherine leaned in, her eyes glinting with anticipation. "Look forward to it," she whispered, a victorious smirk on her lips. The lights dimmed, and a spotlight fell on James. He clutched the microphone, hand trembling. The gentle husband Elizabeth once knew had vanished. "I have a special announcement today," he began. The room fell silent. Elizabeth recalled her father's words, "Never forget your grace, no matter what." "As our gift," James continued, "I'm presenting my wife's hotel to my sister." Murmurs spread through the ballroom. Catherine rose, diamonds flashing in the spotlight, her smile triumphant. "You should be grateful. I'll manage it better." Elizabeth lifted her wine glass with measured calm and took a single sip. Thomas watched her, worried, as Mrs. Brown's voice trembled with anger. "How could you?" Criticism rose from the surrounding tables, but Elizabeth's face remained serene. Her smile was quiet, controlled, and full of unspoken strength. She saw everything. The next morning, unfamiliar luxury cars lined the Emerald Bay's entrance. New staff, hired by Catherine, emerged in neat lines, prepared for the changes ahead. Catherine herself strode in first, arms raised under the crystal chandelier. "Now, let's transform this old hotel with our hands," she declared, voice echoing through the lobby. Mary remained in her familiar corner, silent but wary. Catherine paraded across the handwoven Persian carpet like a queen upon a stage, her high heels clicking assertively. "First, we'll change all these old-fashioned uniforms to something modern and sophisticated," Catherine announced. "But the guests appreciate them," Mary murmured. "Be quiet, I make the decisions." By afternoon, the modernization began. The flashy new reservation system was implemented. but it failed to understand the intricacies of the Emerald Bay's decades-old practices. Mrs. Brown's usual room is 307, by the window, Thomas explained to the new staff. Any room will do, Catherine snapped, scrolling through her phone. When Mrs. Brown arrived that evening, she was guided to a basement room. This room, its humidity isn't good for my joints, she said, confused and disheartened. System error, the staff member stammered. If Elizabeth were here, Mrs. Brown began. Don't mention her name, Catherine interrupted coldly. If you don't like it, find another hotel. Mrs. Brown's face turned pale. She left silently, shoulders hunched in disappointment. Catherine's reforms continued without pause. Afternoon tea was made, modern, for Instagram appeal. Recipes handed down for generations were discarded. New menus replaced old favorites. The newly hired chef struggled with local ingredients. The Dungeness crab was ruined, and the quality of food declined sharply. This is no different from frozen food, guests whispered. Criticism spread online. On the third morning, Thomas found an envelope on his desk. It contained VIP cancellations after VIP cancellations. This hotel is no longer the Emerald Bay we knew, murmured Thomas. By that afternoon, Mary resigned in tears. I can't take it anymore, she said. Catherine, unaffected, declared, it's natural for people left behind by the times to leave. We'll target younger clients, invite influencers, hold flashy parties. Yet the hotel quickly spiraled. Staff lacked basic hospitality skills, complaints mounted, and the once quiet halls echoed with loud party music. It's like a nightclub, neighbors complained. On the fifth night, the breaking point came. Influencers removed the founder's portrait, calling it old-fashioned. The following morning, the reservation system crashed entirely. All data was lost. Furious guests lined the front desk. Chaos consumed the lobby. Leave it to me, Catherine laughed, though her eyes betrayed panic. Even her designer suit seemed somehow distorted. Whose fault is this? She muttered. Could it be that person? At that moment, a taxi screeched to a halt at the entrance. James leapt out. Panic etched across his face. In just 1 week, he had aged visibly, the weight of the hotel's collapse pressing heavily on him. Catherine, something terrible has happened. And then came the fateful 7th morning. San Francisco lay shrouded in an unusually cold fog. The city streets were empty, save for the faint hiss of tires on wet asphalt. Catherine and James stood frozen, staring at the Emerald Bay Hotel. Its grand Victorian facade, once alive with bustling energy, now seemed impossibly silent. Draped in the mist, a small piece of paper, pinned to the solid wooden door, fluttered slightly in the morning breeze. Due to the simultaneous resignation of all staff, operations are suspended as of today. Why is no one here? Catherine's voice rang through the deserted street. Her designer suit, once crisp and commanding, was wrinkled. Her perfect makeup had smeared in streaks across her cheeks, and a shiver of unease ran through her. What's going on? James's voice quivered. The arrogance that had once defined him was gone, replaced by a creeping, gnawing anxiety that left him pale and trembling. They rushed into the hotel. The lobby, normally radiant with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and the warmth of smiling staff, was dead. The familiar greetings, the clatter of teacups, the laughter of regular guests, all had vanished like a mirage. It was as though the hotel itself had been drained of life. On the front desk lay a single envelope. Hands shaking, Catherine picked it up. James helped, and together they opened it. A photograph slid out, landing softly on the polished marble. It was from 10 years ago, Elizabeth standing proudly, a warm smile lighting her face, surrounded by all the hotel staff on the day she inherited management from her father. On the back, in elegant, flowing handwriting, were the words that had guided the Emerald Bay for decades. The true value of a hotel lies in its people. This is, James's voice faltered, unable to finish. At that moment, quiet footsteps echoed across the empty lobby. Elizabeth emerged, moving with the same calm elegance she always possessed. Her pastel-colored suit, perfectly tailored, was unwrinkled, unchanged from a week ago. I had personal contracts with all the staff, she said, her voice calm. deliberate, yet firm. That's impossible, Catherine whispered, her face draining of color. They are my family, not yours. Elizabeth's gaze was steady, unwavering. She approached the lobby fireplace, where the old guest book rested, untouched since her father's time. Opening it revealed careful signatures of guests spanning generations, each name a testament to loyalty, tradition, and respect. This past week, Elizabeth continued quietly, I've been preparing a new hotel. I've been secretly renovating another old mansion on Nob Hill. You mean? James's voice trembled. Yes, I had already spoken with all the staff and regular guests since the day of the wedding. A flood of memories struck Catherine, overwhelming her senses. The quiet intensity of Elizabeth sipping wine that evening, the restlessness of the staff, the sudden wave of cancelled reservations, it all made sense now. Every puzzle piece clicked into place. But the ownership of this hotel, Catherine's voice wavered, clinging desperately to her last hope. Yes, you're right, Elizabeth said softly, a faint, knowing smile gracing her lips. This hotel is indeed yours on paper, but the soul of the Emerald Bay, the heart of it, was something that could never be transferred. Outside, a chorus of cheers rose. Catherine glanced toward the window. The Emerald Bay staff, Mary, Thomas, Chef Parker, and many others, stood together in triumphant unity. Behind them were regular guests, including Mrs. Brown, smiling with approval. The new hotel opens next week, Elizabeth said, her voice carrying over the fog. All existing reservations have been transferred there. We will create new history with Miss Elizabeth. Thomas's voice rang clear and strong. Catherine's legs wobbled, and she collapsed into a nearby chair. The expensive heels clicked emptily against the floor. But why? Her voice trembled, tears welling. Why didn't you protest back then? In business, it's important not to get emotional, Elizabeth replied, quoting her father's teaching. Besides, I knew the value of this hotel wasn't just in the building. James stared at his wife, helpless. The days when they had dreamed together now felt like distant memories, faded and unreachable. Elizabeth, you had debts to your sister from failed investments. Elizabeth interrupted sharply, but you were wrong. What's important isn't the immediate cash value, it's the trust and relationships this hotel has built over decades. At that moment, distant police sirens pierced the foggy morning. Oh yes, Elizabeth added casually, as if remembering an afterthought. I hear there was a massive leak of guest personal information yesterday. The authorities are treating it as a serious matter. Catherine's face lost its last trace of color. Her luxury handbag slipped from her arm, thudding heavily to the floor. This is the price of trying to change everything without understanding tradition, Elizabeth said, her voice quiet but dignified. She walked slowly toward the lobby doors. The fog outside began to lift, sunlight spilling over the San Francisco Bay, bathing the city in a warm glow. The history of the Emerald Bay would end here, but its soul would live on, carried forward into a new chapter. Now, let's begin our new step forward. As Elizabeth opened the doors, thunderous applause erupted. The staff and loyal guests celebrated, their cheers echoing into the morning sky. 1 month later, San Francisco awoke to soft sunlight, reflecting off a newly polished Victorian sign perched high atop Nob Hill, the Emerald Legacy. From this vantage point, the view was breathtaking. San Francisco Bay stretched endlessly, shrouded in morning mist, with Alcatraz Island rising from the water like a sentinel of history. Elizabeth stood in the quiet lobby before opening. The hand-woven Persian carpets, crystal chandeliers, and cozy chairs by the fireplace radiated the same warmth as the Emerald Bay, but now in a refreshed, reimagined setting. Every corner honored the past while embracing the future. Miss Elizabeth, Thomas entered, unusually animated. I have the reservation report. We're fully booked for the first month. Most of our bookings are from loyal regulars. Elizabeth smiled. She hung her father's photograph in a prominent place. The presence of his image seemed to breathe life into the new building. Here, we'll create new history again, she said softly. Yes, the staff replied, their faces bright with hope and excitement. Meanwhile, the former Emerald Bay remained silent, Catherine's reckless management had left scars deeper than she had anticipated. The information leak made headlines, and legal authorities pursued her for negligence. "This is a serious case," the prosecutor declared. "It has severely damaged customer trust." Her former luxury attire had been replaced by modest clothing. Her social circle evaporated, and she spent her days quietly in her family's guest house. "I was wrong," she whispered to the fog outside her window. "Tradition, it's so easy to destroy, but building it is so terribly difficult." Collection notices and bills piled high on her desk. The modern systems she had introduced now seemed like chains weighing her down. James suffered as well. His reputation destroyed, removed from critical projects, ignored by colleagues. He was branded as a man who betrayed his family's trust. At his desk, he stared at his wedding ring, memories of Elizabeth's dedication flashing like a silent movie in his mind. "What a fool I've been," he muttered. Divorce papers, bearing Elizabeth's neat signature, waited silently. At the Emerald Legacy, new traditions flourished. Chef Parker partnered with a local culinary school, training young chefs and passing down decades of wisdom. Mary trained the new staff with unparalleled enthusiasm. "Our work isn't just about service," she said, smiling at the trainees. "It's about building emotional bonds with our guests. That's the lesson Miss Elizabeth taught us." Morning meetings were warmer, laughter and camaraderie filling the room. Each staff member had endured the trials of the previous week together, emerging stronger. "It's all thanks to you," Elizabeth said, never forgetting to express her gratitude. Mrs. Brown returned as an honorary advisor, enjoying her weekly tea and the view from the fireplace. "The scones are still the best," she said, smiling. "But now the view, it's even better than before." Elizabeth introduced new initiatives, offering affordable wedding packages to young couples. "I want more people to experience a memorable, special day," she explained. "Hospitality shouldn't be limited to the privileged few." Couples began to flock to the new venue. Elizabeth personally guided brides through their weddings, her words reassuring and steady. "Leave your special day to us." Trust and tradition passed steadily to a new generation. 1 month after opening, a letter arrived. It was from Catherine. "Dear sister, I'm truly sorry." Elizabeth read it, noting the trembling handwriting. Quietly, she picked up her pen. "It takes courage to acknowledge mistakes. I sincerely support your new beginning." After sending her reply, Elizabeth stood by the window. The city was bathed in the warm orange glow of evening. This new story had only just begun. Generations would continue to create memories within these walls. "Father," she thought, looking at the sky, "we chose the right path, didn't we?" At that moment, the sun broke through the clouds, bathing the lobby in golden light as though her father himself had responded. "Miss Elizabeth," Thomas called softly, "it's almost time for sunset tea." "Thank you, Thomas." With her usual graceful steps, Elizabeth walked toward the kitchen. Above the fireplace, the founder's photograph seemed to smile quietly, watching over the new legacy she had built.